My name is Al Harvard. My branch in the military is air defense. I did enlist in the Army, and I can show you the progress that I made. I started college at 17 years old. I had no business in college at 17. None at all. I looked at my schedule, no girls, no cars, no parties. What am I doing in college? So I figured I could go to the Army and they would teach me a trade. So I did that first year, and I did 1 year of ROTC at the same time at the University of Detroit. That's where I'm from. So I went downtown to the Detroit recruiting office and I says, "What's the longest school you have?" And he says, "We have a 44-week missile school." I said, "I'll take it."
Major Albert Harvard served in the 32nd Air Defense Command Unit as a commander. He was on active duty between July 26, 1957 and November 3, 1979.
Amplify my movement towards a career, I went to a Halloween party that year in October, and he had loaned me his uniform. He was an E7, a Sergeant First Class in the Korean War. So this is a unique uniform. It's referred to as an Eisenhower jacket, short-waisted, brown, just like President Eisenhower wore, or General Eisenhower. And I stopped to fill up in gas, and this guy came up to me and says, "Soldier, I'll get that." And that stunned me. That was in 1957. And I was stunned by that. So when it came time to enlist, when I went down, I selected the Army recruiter. And that's how I ended up in the Army and in the missile business. And my enlisted career lasted for 8 months. Now, an officer candidate school is 26 weeks long. You're in a 3-layered system, 8 weeks apart. Lower class, which is exactly what it implies, your lower class. Middle class, which would be your NCO, a sergeant, so you could be getting to get some leadership training. And then the 4th one is an officer. Now you're an officer, you're in charge. In America, if it's formal, you usually knife on the right, fork on the left. You cut the food, you put the knife down on the table, then you reach across and grab the fork, and you eat with your right hand. Well, I was used to pushing and shoving, and I did that. And he says, of course you sit up straight like this because you had to do that, square meal stuff. And I cut the meat and I pushed it up in my fork and I went like this, and you could have heard him from Lawton, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City screaming at me because I was such a slob. And I only had 25 more weeks to go. I mean, what a way to start. So he said, "Candidate Harvard," he says, "you are such a slob that you don't deserve to sit here and eat. So your only place to eat is under the table." And that's where he put me. But most of that training for all 26 weeks was academic. And the guys that failed or got set back to another cycle usually failed academically. It was, I'd say 75% of OCS was academic and 25% was physical. And nobody that I know of was ever released from school because they didn't pass any physical testing. They might have got sick or broken something, but not the physical demands. But the academics, they were brutal. They were tough.
Ho Chi Minh arrived in 1941 as a communist leader. He sought to rid Vietnam of French and Japanese invaders, and declared a Democratic Republic of Vietnam in September 2nd, 1945.
The Second Indochina War, or Vietnam War, lasting from 1955 to 1975, was a direct result of the First Indochina War. There was a struggle between nationalists trying to make Vietnam a communist state against the United States and South Vietnamese. The war between France and Vietnam ended with the victory of the Communist forces and the Geneva Agreement. In the Geneva Agreement, Vietnam was split by the 17th parallel into North and South.
With the North's continuation of the Socialist Revolution, the Viet Cong were sent to fight South Vietnam. They would attack in ambushes, set up booby traps, and escape through a network of underground tunnels, as well as utilizing jungle warfare.
Guerrilla warfare was widely used by the Viet Cong. They posed as citizens for surprise attacks and scavenged the countryside for U.S. bombs. The U.S. citizens were also angered by the U.S. government for using attrition warfare, which resulted in a massive amount of casualties.
The war resulted in the deaths of 2 million Vietnamese citizens in both the North and South. Vietnam, despite becoming a military power in the Southeast Asia after the war, was burdened economically and agriculturally and laced with landmines. The war accomplished very little for a very high price.
Cu Chi is in Vietnam, and I was stationed there. This is Vietnam, and this is North Vietnam up here. Cambodia and Thailand over here. Okay, I was stationed down here, and this is referred to as 3 Corps. The Corps is an element of an army. If you have several organizations, they become a corps, and then you have an army, which is all the corps. So this is I Corps, 1st Corps is all Roman numerals, 2 Corps, 3 Corps, and then 4 Corps down here. This was the hot spot. The guys that were actually on the ground in combat with guns and machetes, this is their primary place of activity, is up here in the north. We had our share of it, though. And when I was there, I had, let's see, I was in country for about 6-7 days, and they didn't know what to do with an air defense captain. And they didn't want to entertain my thoughts, because I had a good idea what you could do with me. That's just why I'm back and send me home. But they said, no, we're not going to do that. So anyhow, I got a call to go to the 25th Infantry Division. And in the Army uniform, if you're in a combat area, you wear your combat badge on this side. And that's the emblem for the 25th Division. Now, do you know what Tet is, T-E-T? Tet is the Lunar New Year for the Vietnamese. And in 1968, we had the biggest Tet offensive in the history of the war. And it was a bloodbath. Mostly on both sides, but, on both sides, but mostly for the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. We were very well trained, the Army was, the Army and the Marine Corps. And we could see them coming and be prepared for it. But there's so many of them. So many of them. Then that year passed. Now we get into 1969 when I was here. And when Tet came, I was in country and in command for about a month. And they broke through the wire. And that lasted for about 4 days. And there was constant combat from all directions. They had 3 missions. One was to overcome the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center, which they failed. The other one was to take out the Chinook helicopters, to which they did not fail. We had 16 of them, they took 9 out. And that's a serious blow to transportation, because those things are fast and they can fly high. So they fly out of the range of the weapons. But now when you lose, more than 50% of your inventory, it's kind of hard to get those kids in and out of the field. And in the third one, they were a North Vietnamese lieutenant was trained to capture a tank and drive it through the base camp and just raise hell. Well, all wars had some guerrilla activities, and guerrilla activities are combatants that are clustered in small units and hide behind and ambush the Allies. And we do it too. But in Vietnam, it was tough for the Americans to find them, because the jungles are so deep, and so they had what's known as triple canopy jungles that go up 50 feet high, but on the ground it's all dark. It's all mushy and dark because sunlight can't get down to it. And these guys would lay in that mush, shoot at you when you came walking down in a particular trail. As an enlisted man, my job was to take care of this missile system's radars, the Hawk missile system's radars, and the fire control center, the computers that guide the radars, okay, or make them function. As an officer, I went back as a major, and I was the chief of maintenance for the whole brigade. So I had Nike Hercules, I had a Hawk, I had another weapon system called Chaparral Vulcan, and those are all air defenses. And I was responsible for anything that moved. If it moved or broke, my job was to have it fixed. So that was a lot of stuff out there. Just for example, just in one Hawk battalion, and we had 8 Hawk battalions, just in one, there's 252 trucks and 12 tank units, tank-like things, tracks. And Nike Hercules has got a similar amount of equipment. And then Chaparral Vulcan does too. So I was a very, very busy boy while I was over there. And by the way, on a scale of 1 to 10, my career was 12-3. I have no regrets whatsoever.